And now, Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks.
Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to Move the Sticks, presented by AARP. In for DJ today, I am Rhett Lewis here with Bucky Brooks, international Bucky Brooks. He is still in London, and glad to have you with us here, Buck. I guess DJ is finally just taking matters into his own hands. He's doing what he can to engineer a winning season for the Padres. He's down at the MLB winter meetings today. I guess apparently on the lookout for a catcher.
Oh my God, it's so funny because he is. Look, I know he is in his own personal heaven. He's such a big Padres fan.
Yes.
I'm actually excited to kind of hear what he brings back from those baseball meetings because we love the team building process, and I do believe that some of the things that you use to build other teams and other sports are applicable to football.
Sure.
So it'd be great to get his insight on how to build a great team, how to build a great organization from some of the best minds in baseball.
Yeah, no question. Excited about that to see what DJ brings back. He'll be back later this week. So, look, Bucky, I'm interested, man, because on this episode today, we're going to have quite a bit of college football talk here. We're going to get into the Heisman finalists who were just announced yesterday: Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, Chase Young, Jalen Hurts. But sure does feel like it's Joe Burrow running away. We'll also react to the conference championship games, kind of do a little bit of a mini takeaway pod, which we do every Monday here on Move the Sticks. We'll give our top three kind of takeaways from championship weekend, and then we'll take a look ahead at the Final Four, the college football playoff this year, which of course features LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, and now Oklahoma in there at the fourth spot. So we'll get into all that, but I want to first, Bucky, give me a sense of, because I know you're in London. I know you're doing some work with Sky Sports, and I know that the fans in London are into NFL football. We see that every year in and year out, and they pack the stadium, pack Wembley or the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to watch the NFL games. But how do they feel about Monday Night Football?
I mean, it's funny. Like, they're excited about all football. And Red, let me tell you, if you are a football fan over here in the UK,
yeah,
and you're staying up to watch a Monday Night Football game, that starts at 1:20 local time.
In the morning?
1:20 a.m. local time. So if you're really committed to being like the biggest football fan in the UK, you have a level of dedication that exceeds anything that I've experienced. Because I'm going to be honest with you, like having worked all day Sunday and trying to stay up to watch the Sunday night game, man, it wipes you out.
Oh, I bet.
And so then to think, I'm going to sleep all day Monday, and then I'm going to do it again and stay up from 1 to 4, 5 in the morning to watch the Monday night game. It is just, it's a bear because it kind of sets you back for a day or so to kind of get your bearings straight.
No doubt. I mean, if I was, back 20 years old again, it might actually be really fun. It might be a great way to come home from a great night and just sit down and take in some football. I guess it's kind of the same thing for how we take in a lot of big-time soccer matches here in the U.S. It's like I drive to work on Sunday past one of the bars here in Culver City. That is a soccer bar, and it's packed at 7 in the morning. There's people outside having a great time. They're watching soccer. So I guess it's just it's kind of the flip side of it. But man, 1 a.m. That's a tough kickoff for Monday Night Football. So I don't know how much you saw then of Eli Manning's return to the starting lineup.
I saw a lot of it.
Okay.
So I was able to get on and check it out.
Well, look, man, it was good for me to see. I mean, you guys know that I'm close with Eli. I close with the Manning family, and I really was excited for him to get another opportunity and to see him out there again. Had the family up in the stands watching in Philly, and look, for the first half, man, I was like, this could be writing a pretty good story here. Throws a couple of touchdown passes to Darius Slayton, a couple of really nice balls. He gets them in the right play, does that all the time. And then the second half, things, just start falling apart. Not necessarily all on him. I know he'll tell you he wishes he could have made a couple of more passes, a couple of more completions, and keep some drives going. They weren't able to extend many drives in the second half, end up going to overtime and then losing. Didn't even get a shot at it with the Giants defense, giving up the touchdown right off the bat to the Eagles. But I guess you got to credit the Eagles too, Buck, for coming out in the second half and figuring things out a little bit.
Yeah, it's such a weird game, man, because the Giants appear to have control of the game for most of the first half and even into the third quarter. Eli did get out into a nice rhythm. The ball came out quick. They were a little balanced, and you could tell his experience really helped the Giants offense kind of get jump-started.
Yeah.
The defense played well to a point. And you're talking about a Philadelphia Eagles team that didn't have many weapons. Like, even when they were healthy, they didn't have any explosive players. The most explosive offensive player that they have is Miles Sanders.
Right.
And when they are not able to get him the ball in open field, they have a tough time generating explosive plays. And so the Giants had locked them up. And then Alshon Jeffrey goes out. They are playing what J.J. Arcega-Whiteside goes out. They're playing with Greg Ward and 3 tight ends.
Yeah, it was basically one wide out in the second half.
One wide receiver on the field. And then they kind of found a rhythm, and Carson Wentz got into it. And so Carson Wentz kind of blotted out a performance that would have been a solid one from Eli, one that would have been, I wouldn't say storybook, because he didn't necessarily play his, but it would have been a feel-good story for the Giants in a season that has really been absolutely miserable. To see the franchise leader, the quarterback that is synonymous with 2 Super Bowl wins, kind of go out in a blaze of glory. It kind of robbed them of having that moment, and it robbed Eli of having his moment because the defense couldn't hold up.
I remember listening to Lisa Salters at the end of halftime, coming back for the start of the second half, and she was relaying the conversation she had with Pat Shurmur coming back onto the field, and she was like, and she said that he kept saying we got to run the look. Things are going well. Eli's playing well. We've got some points on the board. We got to keep this going in the second half. We got to run the ball more. I was like, okay, yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you spent number 2 overall pick on Saquon Barkley, and 17 carries for 66 yards just doesn't do it for me. And I mean, 17 carries is a healthy number in this day and age for a running back, but I still think there's got to be a better way to get Saquon Barkley involved in the offense for the Giants. I mean, he's their best player.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and Rhett, if we go all the way back to the year he was coming out and the way that he played at Penn State, and what we talked about on Path to the Draft was Saquon Barkley is not necessarily a guy that's going to give you a steady diet of 4 and 5 yard runs.
Right.
If you go back and look at the way that he played at Penn State, he was a 1, 2, -3, 50, 5, 6, -3, -7.
60. Yep.
Yeah. So he is a bit of a scattershot player, and I'm not saying he's Barry Sanders, but he is Barry Sanders-like in terms of the way that he would produce his production. Barry Sanders was one of those guys that you're going to have some negative runs. You're going to have some stretches where it doesn't pop, but you have to give him enough opportunities. I think the bigger thing for the Giants is looking at that offensive line and the investment that they've made in that offensive line. That offensive line doesn't generate the kind of push in the run game nor the protection in the pass game that you would expect.
Yeah.
Nate Solder has been a big flop on a major stage in New York. Like, he cannot play at a high enough level to kind of justify what they paid to get him.
Right.
And it really affects them because they can't win the line of scrimmage. And without being able to win the line of scrimmage, they can't run the ball and they can't keep a quarterback protected enough to really be able to attack down the field.
Yeah, I think that started to become even more apparent last night. In fact, I was on Twitter and watching Brian Baldinger was just livid over the fact that they were actually trying to give Solder help to deal with Vinny Curry. They're bringing a tight end in to chip with Solder, who you're paying $15 million a year. At that point, you had made him the highest paid offensive lineman in the year. He's like, he's got to be able to block Vinny Curry one-on-one. Like, that's just got to happen, right?
He has to be able to do it. Like, he has to be able to win his one-on-ones. And so that's the thing that is disturbing. Like, people, when we talk about free agency, so much of it is about the cost and all that. But really, what you're paying for is premier performance in big games. And, I mean, look, when you're doing whatever they are, I don't know if you have big games, but what you're doing is I'm saying, Nate Solder, by paying you this money and by saying you're our franchise tackle, we can then send all the help to the other side. We shouldn't have to pay you big money and help you.
Yes.
If we're doing that,
correct.
We're wrong in our evaluation on what you can do, what you can add to this team.
Correct. So look, and again, this game will come down to in the second half, the Giants could not sustain drives. They were 2 for 12 on third down. The Eagles had 27 first downs in this game compared to 11 for the Giants, and the majority of those first downs for the Eagles coming in the second half, a bunch of them coming on that overtime drive as well. That was really impressive with the limited the limited skill position group that the Eagles ended up throwing out there. So, look, the Eagles stay alive. The Cowboys and the Eagles keep keeping each other alive in the NFC East. Somebody's going to win this division. I can guarantee you that. It will not be the Redskins or the Giants. So one of these two teams has to step up and take control. Excited to watch them actually play in Week 16 and see which one can outlast and win the NFC East. Okay, let's get into some of the college football talk here, Bucky. And we just found out yesterday the Heisman finalists were announced, and not really any surprise. Joe Burrow of LSU, Justin Fields, the first-year starting quarterback at Ohio State, and then his teammate Chase Young on the other side, who did miss some games, but still gets the invite to New York based on just how dominant he was in the games he was available for Ohio State. And a guy we thought, maybe in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season was the odds-on favorite in Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma, and then kind of fell up the map a little bit when OU lost to Kansas State. Had the close game with Baylor, and then actually took Baylor to overtime in the Big 12 championship game. So look, is it Burrow or bust here, Bucky? Because that's how I feel.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, when you think about what he has been able to do, it's unbelievable the change in Joe Burrow from one year to the next.
Right.
Last year, he was just viewed as, let's be honest, just a guy. It's that. You're being very, very kind to think about him being a potential NFL quarterback. Last year, he was 57% passer. He was a guy who had 16 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. This year, he's a 77% passer.
That's insane.
48 touchdowns, 6 interceptions in a year. And so he has clearly been the most dominant college player on the scene this year. The trick will be when we're doing the evaluation and we're beginning to think about the NFL draft and we're thinking about the ascension that he has made. We have to then try and figure out how much of it do we put on him and his personal development, how much do we put on Joe Brady and what Joe Brady has done to revamp this scheme, and how much of all of this is sustainable at the next level.
Right.
Can he replicate this kind of performance anywhere, or is he a guy that is going to be tied to a system that whoever takes him, they have to take the same system and surround them with the same kind of dominant players that LSU has on the edge?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And look, obviously with Cincinnati in line for the number 1 overall pick and Joe Burrow, an Ohio guy, it certainly pointing that way. And, if that's something to think about, right? Because, they got A.J. Green there, but for how long? Are they going to be able to figure something out and keep him in the fold? They've got, Tyler Boyd in there as well. And Auden Tate has shown that he can play. I mean, there's some good receivers there if they can keep them all healthy and keep them all going. So, but that's the issue that you're going to have going number 1 overall. Even if it isn't the Bengals, if they manage to win a couple here, you're going to end up on a team that's not very good. And so then how quickly can you showcase the potential that we're seeing right now is, again, the question that we have with all these young quarterbacks.
Yes, yeah, with all of it. And then also, throw this into the mix. So when we talk about the number 1 overall pick and we talk about the talent, the number 1 overall pick is supposed to be a transcendent talent.
Yeah.
When we just stack up his talent, and let's compare him to Chase Young and Chase Young's talent.
Right.
Is Joe Burrow more talented than Chase Young? And look, we can talk about the bump that quarterbacks get because of the value of the position. But when we're drafting and we're talking about you want to acquire the best players, I just think this Joe Burrow evaluation is going to be one that right now we can't see it. But I think when we get into April, there are going to be some hard conversations that teams are going to have to make when they evaluate him and what he actually brings to the table as a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, look, and I think if Chase Young had been on the field every single game for Ohio State, we might be having a more serious conversation about him winning the Heisman Trophy. It's not going to happen this year. Not with the way things kind of ended up going for him this year, even though in every game he played, he was dominant. I mean, he's a
dominant player. I mean, yeah. And I think that is one of the things that you definitely look for. And for a defensive player to win at one, it's going to be hard because we're so conditioned for the reward to either go to quarterback and then maybe running back. And then after that, who knows? But it's an award. It's the best quarterback on the best team in the country is typically the one that's kind of won the award. So it's going to be hard to overcome that until there's a different level of criteria or until the voters see it in a different way. Yeah, Chase Young is really fighting an uphill climb to be a defender, the first defender to win the award since Charles Woodson.
And then, next year, Justin Fields will be the favorite to win it next year in 2020, coming into the season, just with the way.
I wonder about that because remember the Trevor Lawrence thing has been funny, right? It's been a funny conversation that we'll have, and eventually we'll preview the national championship semifinals or whatever. But here's what. Remember, we entered the year talking about Trevor Lawrence being a transcendent talent, Trevor Lawrence being a guy that if he didn't play this year could go into the draft, he would be number one overall.
Right.
And, that talk has kind of gone away as Clemson has kind of run roughshod over the ACC. But what we'll get in the national semifinal, we'll get a chance to see, it'll be the first, I guess, appetizer to the 2021 quarterback class potentially. Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence squaring off, guys that were number 1 and number 2 in all of the recruiting rankings, guys that will take the field opposite one another to kind of set the table for what will be a great debate in 2021.
Yeah, no, you're right. And look, I'm actually I'm curious here because, there was a point this season, right, where everyone was wondering what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. Is he injured?
Yeah.
You had, Dabo Swinney getting all fired up about that. And but there was a point then, let's see, after the Louisville game where they won 29-20, or where he was 20 of 29, 238, he threw 2 picks in that game. They still won. Then he went on, wins over Boston College, Wofford, North Carolina State, Wake Forest, South Carolina, and Virginia, and did not throw a pick and was completing over 70% of his passes in each one of those games. Ended up with 9, 13, 16, 20 touchdowns, 0 interceptions over his last 7 games. That's more what we thought we were going to see. And, look, that leads us into our mini 10 takeaway podcast, if you will. We're going to do our three favorite takeaways from conference championship weekends. And Bucky, since we're talking about Trevor, let me dive right in there because that was one of my takeaways this weekend. Was that in the game that nobody, most people weren't watching, was the ACC championship game. Clemson destroyed Virginia, and they did it with Trevor Lawrence and T. Higgins. Those are 2 of my takeaways right there. That connection was insane. I mean, Trevor goes for 4 touchdowns. T catches 3 of them, and that looked like what we expected to see from Clemson week in and week out. We didn't get that all year, but to see that on a big stage in the ACC championship game, look, I thought that was kind of neat. And now, Clemson's kind of lying in the grass, right? Are they the team that could jump out and surprise some people here in the college football playoff? I think that's something we have to legitimately discuss there.
I mean, think about this, Rhett. You're talking about a team that has won 28 straight games.
Yeah.
A team that, they haven't lost since 2017.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A quarterback that has been celebrated as one of the best that we've seen. You have a slew of wide receivers that can make plays. And yet, man, they're not even really talked about as a heavyweight favorite in this playoff field. And they are the team that is
the defending champs.
The defending champs. An opportunity to go back to back. And so I think if you're Dabo Swinney, this is everything that every coach wants. Every coach wants a title contender that has won the title but is viewed as an underdog. So the motivation is already there because he can stand in front of everybody and say, guys, look, we started off as the preseason number 1. We didn't lose a game, but they view you as the 3rd best team in the country.
Right.
So we now have an opportunity to show everybody that the defending champions are still a championship squad.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better than that.
No, it doesn't. So, look, the connection from Trevor Lawrence to T. Higgins was one of the things that one of my takeaways from championship weekend. The fact that Clemson, might surprise some folks here in the college football playoff was another takeaway. I'll give you my last one here in a second, but I want to get some of yours here before I give you my final takeaway from championship weekend. So what stuck out to you?
Man, Joe Burrow and Joe Brady are the real
the Joes.
The Joes, that combination. In fact, if I'm a team at the top and I'm thinking about bringing Joe Burrow in, man, I might as well throw a bunch of money at Joe Brady and see if I could get both of them. Because together, they are unstoppable.
Great point.
The way this is looking like, the way this offense works at LSU and the connection that they have from play caller to quarterback, I don't know if you can beat that. I mean, they are slicing up, good teams with NFL talent with ease. Look, Joe Burrow has been great as the director, but I think you could just throw as many verbal bouquets to Joe Brady in terms of his ability to dial this up, to create this offense that has some NFL stuff from the Saints, some of this Joe Moorhead RPO stuff that he learned from like Penn State, and to throw it all together. What you're seeing on offense from LSU is really the future of football, maybe at the NFL level. A little of everything kind of mixed together, because you spend so much time down in New Orleans and that Louisiana. It's like a big old pot of gumbo.
Yeah, buddy.
Man, everyone is going to want to sample. But the Joe Burrow, Joe Brady combination is something that is fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's not like Joe doesn't have Brady doesn't have the NFL experience. He came over from the Saints to LSU, so he's got a little bit of that background in it. That's an interesting thing. I think we saw that right with when the Colts drafted Andrew Luck. They brought Pep Hamilton over, right, from Stanford.
Eventually, he came over. Yeah,
I don't know if it was
over, and he did something. It was a couple years after that. He had
right.
Look, there are mixed results in terms of Indianapolis fans will tell you that, but
sure.
I do believe this. There's some comfort in taking a quarterback and having a play caller who already knows all of his warts.
Yeah.
He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. He knows what he had to do to mask his flaws. But it is something to consider, Joe Brady having that opportunity. And I'm not saying, I know some people will fast forward, the only way you get him, you have to make him a head coach. Okay, but I do believe that you can elevate him to the point where you give him a chance to do that and then just kind of see where it goes.
Right. All right. What other takeaways did you have from the championship game weekend?
Look, Justin Herbert finally had his moment. And look, the numbers are not impressive. He didn't have over 200 yards. It was just kind of a solid performance. But this was a game where Oregon was an underdog against Utah. Oregon wasn't really expected to knock off Utah. I don't know how seriously we thought that would be, especially with them losing to Arizona State prior to this big game. But Justin Herbert managed the game the right way, played like a pro, made a couple of throws that kind of made you raise your eyebrows he can do it. Now, I will say this. I don't know if I believe that he is a franchise saver, meaning that he can turn around the franchise with his talent, but I do believe he can be a solid to high-end starter for a team that has pieces in place.
Right.
So if he is drafted maybe at that mid level, okay. So let's do this, because this is an exercise that people have to do. So say you're Tampa Bay and you're sitting at 14 or 15 draft position, and you have to do the debate: Jameis Winston, Justin Herbert. That's the debate where, we've seen what Jameis can do, and we've seen that roller coaster ride. Could we take Justin Herbert and maybe not get the negative plays, but maybe get some of the same positive plays in that vein with Mike Evans and Goodwin and O.J. Howard and what they have around him? I think he is a better player if he gets drafted mid to late, more so than early, because I don't think he can live up to top 10 expectations, but I do believe in the right situation he could go lower and play better because he has better stuff around him.
That's a great point. You're not going to find many better situations for a quarterback, at least on the perimeter, with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Now, offensive line-wise, that might be a different story in Tampa, but there's opportunity to improve there as well. Look, that's a tough call, right? We talked about Jameis a lot on the 10 Takeaway podcast. I told DJ this weekend, on Monday rather, that after this weekend, I just want Jameis to be my shadow. I just want him to hang around with me because anything that goes wrong, he'll be like, "Hey man, don't worry about it. Just forget it.
I got it.
Forget it. We'll throw a touchdown on the next series." Okay. So that, I feel like I want him hanging around with me. So I don't know. I don't know if I could say that about Justin Herbert just yet, because I haven't seen enough of the big plays. Right. You're right. We don't see as many of the negative. So maybe that is Can you
or even let's fast forward because DJ's not on the pod, but let's just imagine Justin Herbert playing for the LA Chargers, right? So the LA Chargers.
It's another good one
on the outside. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. They have a tight end in Hunter Henry. Depending on what you do at running back, Austin Eckler, whatever, they have enough. They got to fix the offensive line, but let's think about moving forward with him and Phillip Rivers in a debate that you would have. So I do believe he is a guy that can be a starting quarterback, a solid to high-end starter in the league, but he has to have the right stuff.
Right.
I just don't know, man, if you take him 2, 3, 4, if you're going to be satisfied immediately in what he brings, unless it's one of those teams that just kind of fell off to bounce back. When I'm looking at the teams that are picking up there, I don't know if there are any of those special situations where a team just had a bad year and they're going to bounce back next year.
Right. Look, that'll be a fun one, and I'm sure we can have that debate as we get started on Path to the Draft coming up this spring once free agency finishes up. So that'll be a fun one because the free agency quarterback situation could be really intriguing as well with guys like Phillip and Jameis Winston and Ryan Tannehill and that whole crew, and maybe even Eli Manning. So that's there's some interesting variables in the quarterback discussion there. You got one final takeaway for us from Champ Weekend?
Oh, man, Ohio State is tough.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like, we talk about toughness. Everyone thinks about the physical, but really the mental toughness that was on display. You talk about a team that is loaded with NFL talent. We can talk about Chase Young and Okudah and even a young Justin Fields.
Right.
So they got hit in the face early by the Badgers. And, look, they stumbled back to the corner. They may have taken a standing 8 count. But the way that they reeled off those points to come back and win in the Big Ten title game, man, it speaks volumes about their grit, the resiliency, the perseverance, all those words that you want to throw in there. For them to bounce back, man, says a lot. And I think that experience is going to serve them well in the semifinals because for them to knock off Clemson, it is going to take a champion effort to knock out the champion. And so I feel better about Ohio State than I felt about them before because the way that they were able to take Wisconsin's haymaker and bounce back, I think it says a lot about Ryan Day and his staff and his team.
So I think that's a good point. I think the early deficit from Ohio State showcases something that could be more valuable to them rather than showcasing vulnerability. I think it ends up, as you said, being more valuable to them in their arsenal now, in their back pocket as they get set for the college football playoff. And look, Nabil obviously works closely with us as a producer here on Move the Sticks, and big Wisconsin fan. Big Packers fan, and so we had the group text going during the Big Ten championship game, and I love you, Nabil. It was 21-7. He was feeling it, and his text goes, Wisconsin is winning this.
Well, I saw that.
They didn't score another point. They didn't score another point. Oh, man, Nabil, I felt for you on that one. I was like, oh, boy, there's the kiss of death. There it is. And Ohio State rattles off, what was it, 27 unanswered at that point to go and win 34-21. Nabil, we love you. We wish the best for your Badgers next season, my friend, or in the where are they going to end up? In are they in the Rose?
Yeah, they're in
the Rose. Yeah, there you go.
So the Badgers take on Oregon, and I think the last time we saw that matchup was a classic with Russell Wilson.
Yes.
Russell Wilson, they came up a little short, but it was a great game. DeAnthony Thompson, like a lot of fireworks or whatever. And so, I mean, Ray, that's kind of local, Pasadena. We may need to take a little ride.
You better believe it. We might have to go do it.
After the draft, to get a look. Scope not only at Justin Herbert, but get a look at Jonathan Taylor and some of the other guys that are playing the pros.
Yeah, scope it out before we go watch the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl later in January from Pasadena as well, which you'll see right here on NFL Network, which is fun as we get to see some of the best players in college football take the field. All right, so that and then my final takeaway after your 3 there on championship weekend was Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin got it done at Florida Atlantic. He wins now 2 conference championships in 3 years at FAU and then bolts for Ole Miss. And look, I think this was always going to be a stepping stone for him to get back into a head coaching job at a Power 5 school. I'm sure FAU understood that as well. That was clearly, part of the deal, but he made it work at FAU. And beat a good UAB team in the conference championship game at Conference USA. So there's a couple of things wrapped up in that. I think it's a really intriguing hire for Ole Miss. And obviously, anytime, anywhere Lane Kiffin goes, it's going to draw some attention. So, I think it did what it was supposed to do for Lane Kiffin, got him another opportunity at a Power 5 school. But also for FAU, you can win at Florida Atlantic. I think that's an attractive job. There's some good players there now too, and he's recruited some good players there. I think that only strengthens the East Division of Conference USA as well, which we see a lot of here on NFL Network now. So I think both parties win in that scenario. Kiffin taking FAU to the top of Conference USA, and then Lane then go ahead and getting his more desirable job at Ole Miss in the SEC. I think that's kind of interesting. What do you think of Lane going to Ole Miss? Do you think he can make it work there?
I absolutely think he can, and I'm gonna say this because I'm sure I am in the minority. I think Lane Kiffin is a really good coach.
Yeah.
Now I won't say that he has handled all situations in the right way, but I will mark some of that up to immaturity because he was very young when he got these opportunities.
Right.
Having met with him and sat with him when he was with the Oakland Raiders, I thought he had a bright mind. I thought what he wanted to do as a pro coach, I felt like he had command. Look, he bounced around and went to Tennessee quickly, inherits a situation at USC that I think anyone would have struggled with. And I think SC fans never could appreciate what he was trying to do when it came to the way that he wanted to play on offense and the style of play. At Ole Miss, I think it will work for him because, one, he knows the beast in that division. He understands Alabama like no other. He understands how to attack Nick Saban. He knows how to make him uncomfortable and all those things. He also will understand how to deal with LSU and the thing. The only part of the job that is tough is, man, it is such a head knocker in the SEC.
Right.
But he probably has the confidence of knowing, hey, man, Hugh Freeze won games at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Ole Miss recently has been relevant in the SEC. Look, throw away those allegations and all that. We have seen Ole Miss be one of the premier teams in the SEC. So there's some confidence knowing that if I do this the right way, I certainly can get it done. And he'll make it exciting. So, look, I am optimistic about what can be at Ole Miss with him in charge.
Yeah, and he's got an interesting quarterback situation, there. Obviously with Coral, who kind of started the season, and then Plumlee, who came in and was the freshman of the week in the SEC a couple of different times. So, look, that's going to be interesting. We know that you can recruit to Ole Miss. I mean, Hugh Freeze was bringing in top recruiting classes in the country, and now we've seen the likes of DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, and there's definitely ways to get really good talent into Ole Miss, and it's just a matter of can you put it all together and be a consistent contender in the West Division. So that's going to be fun to watch. I'm excited to see that. So that's a look there at Championship Weekend. Obviously, as a result of Championship Weekend, we now know who's in the college football playoff, and we'll start in the Peach Bowl on December 28th with Oklahoma and LSU. Out of Oklahoma or Clemson, do you feel like OU will give LSU trouble, Bucky? Or do you
I think they will give them some trouble. Like OU's offense is going to be problematic.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Lincoln Riley can kind of make the game challenging just because of the way he'll put stress on their defense. But player for player, I think LSU is more talented. I think the only thing that still worries me, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I've had my heart broken a little bit in picking games for LSU for so long. Can they still be who they've been after a 4-week layoff?
Right.
How much will rust seep into their game during this period that they're off? Because they're rolling, they're playing the best football right now. How do you kind of set your schedule to keep that going? And also, when you're Oklahoma and you're the 4th seed in this and everyone is going to tell you you have no shot, man, I think the scariest thing is dealing with a Lincoln Riley who has nothing to lose, doesn't have a caring to win. He can do the trick plays and come at you. I think that's a lot. So we'll see. I wouldn't just completely discount Oklahoma, but I think they have a tougher road than Clemson has in terms of pulling off an upset.
Yeah, and I think the 2-3 game with Clemson and Ohio State is going to be really interesting. I think we've seen that there's ways where you can compete with Ohio State. We saw that with Wisconsin in the first half. I think Clemson can certainly do that, and I think we're seeing the best of Trevor Lawrence right now. So, that's going to be a fun one. I'm probably looking forward a little bit more to the Clemson Ohio State game, just because I think that could end up being a really, really good one.
I mean, I think that's a table setter in so many different ways. Like, look, the winner ever goes to the championship game. We talked about the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields conversation and debate that we'll see in 2021. Clemson, this could be the end of a dynasty in terms of, like, they're beginning to lose coaches. Jeff Scott, their co-offensive coordinator, is taking the job in South Florida, so he'll be there for the run. But this will be the last time we see this version of Clemson.
Right.
And so, look, when assistants start leaving, that's kind of when things begin to change, and this will be the first major defection from the Tigers. So, yeah, this is an exciting game. It's a fascinating game. I can't wait to continue to break it down and watch it.
Yeah, no question. And then after that, obviously, we would get into the national championship game. And look, I want to see LSU and Ohio State. They've been the top two teams really all season long. I want to see them, but I'm not just sending them into the title game just yet. I think we're going to have two really good semifinals, and then obviously we'll get into the national championship game once it is set. But it's going to be a fun college football playoff. I think to me, I do feel like these were the four best teams. Look, I think I'd probably love to see 8 in a college football playoff, but that's a whole nother argument. I think we've got 4 really good ones here. It's going to make for some fun starting December 28th with the Peach Bowl, Oklahoma and LSU, and then Clemson and Ohio State and the Fiesta on the 28th as well. All getting set for Indiana and UNC to meet in the college football playoff in 2021. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great, man. I love it. I can't wait.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for us here on this edition of the Move the Sticks podcast presented by AARP. Bucky, when are you heading back over here, man?
Look, man, I come back the 16th, and I think we jump in. We got the Senior Bowl reveal.
Yes, on the 17th.
The 17th.
Or the 18th.
So, yeah. So we get a chance to do all of that. And then you mentioned the collegiate bowl game that we get a chance, the NFLPA collegiate bowl that we get a chance to be a part of.
Yep.
In the booth. So, yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff. Look, when the calendar flips, man, that's when we get a chance to really do our thing. So I'm excited about it all.
No question. Going to be fun. Looking forward to getting you back over here. But again, you can download the Move the Sticks podcast at Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Check out all the videos at NFL.com/MTS video or at our new channel on YouTube. That's YouTube.com/NFL podcast. Remember, when you're downloading, give us a rating and leave us a comment. Leave us a question in the comments, and we just might answer them for you on Thursday's edition of the Move the Sticks podcast. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time, and DJ should be back in the saddle. For Bucky, I'm Rhett. Take it easy.